But you live in the suburbs, so we cut from the same cloth, right?
Absolutely, 100%. It's where I live, so it's just what I got to do until I find a way to move up north.
Jason hunts in New Jersey a lot. That's where he lives. And how many state records do you got in New Jersey?
2.
2 state records. What are the is it for non-typical and typical, or what are the records?
Yeah, the 2 velvet records for the typical and the non-typical.
Is that velvet buck there one of those?
Yeah, that's one of them right there. Yep.
That's the typical record?
Yep.
And what's the story behind that buck? How did you find that buck and get into a position to kill him?
I was actually just driving down the highway, and we looked into the woods and saw a good buck in this one piece. And it's a piece I'd always thought about going into, and it was a tiny piece. You could see right through it. I mean, it's 100 yards wide, maybe a couple 100 yards long, but just a small piece. And I put a camera in there, and I didn't get him that year on the camera, but I got him the next year. And 4 years later, I finally got him. And it was it took a long time to kind of learn how to get him. But, he was only in there because there was nobody else in that piece hunting, and that's why it was in there. It's like one of the only pieces I found that there's not another guy in.
How many acres was it about?
Probably 10 acres at the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find those tiny pockets in the suburbs.
Absolutely.
They'll hold some of those biggest deer, right?
Absolutely, and he stayed in that one and another tiny 10-acre one, and he would just cross the road, and he'd be back and forth, and he would always stay tight to those, and that's the only reason why I was able to survive, because any of the other ones he walked in, he'd have been dead, because there'd be 10 guys in every one.
So do you think he had a super small core area?
That's
like he
exactly
was just
right.
He was holding up in there, and other hunters didn't even know he was around?
Exactly. I think that's a characteristic of a lot of the big bucks near me. They have a real small core area in an area that nobody's, goes, and that's why they're able to get some age on them.
And what do you find they're doing in the rut?
Well, that's the thing. See, there was a lot of does in that piece, and I think he was okay with just being in that piece during the rut, because he was always in there. I mean, even during the rut, I used to see him all the time. I just couldn't shoot him. And he was I think he just didn't travel a lot. And I think that's one of the main reasons that deer I killed him, he was 8.5. I had him aged. And I think that's the main reason he was able to survive, because he just didn't travel during the rut. Like, I'd always get pictures of him or see him, in November. He was always in there.
And it's because he had a whole harem of does in there, so
yeah,
he didn't
exactly.
feel the need to leave?
Yeah, he didn't need to leave. That's how it is in every woodlot. Where I hunt, you get 6 buck tags, and nobody's killing does because you can get 6 buck tags. So there's 1 million does in every lot. So there's like no rut. Like where I hunt, you don't see any rut activity. It's just, it's boring. Because
they don't have to travel a long distance because there's so many doe.
There's nowhere from the travel. We have spotted fawns in January because these deer are getting bred all year long, because it's just everybody wants to use up their buck tags, and nobody's killing does. I mean, why are you going to kill a doe? You got 6 buck tags in a 6-month period. It's ridiculous, and there's no real good management in place for that. So there's just 1 million does.
So you started hunting that buck, and it took you 5 years or 4 years to kill him? What'd you say?
Yeah, it took about 4 years to kill him.
Now,
yeah.
Were you actually hunting him the first time you saw him, or you just wanted to learn him and let him grow bigger?
The first time I hunted him, I could have killed him. It was him and another 8, and they were in the snow, and they were walking down that line where I was hunting, and I couldn't tell them apart because it was snowing so hard, and I knew there was the 2, and I didn't want to shoot the wrong one. And I was pulled back, and I was going to shoot, and I didn't shoot. Thank God I didn't shoot. It's only probably a 130s, high 130s buck then. And, and then I shot him again 2 years later. I hit him high. In the back. It was about a 45-yard shot, and I skipped it, across his back. I hit him about as low as you could hit him without spine, dropping him. And, and then I'm glad all that happened.
That's this one here?
Yeah, that one.
So he's pretty perfectly typical after you injured him. He didn't, nothing happened to his rack?
The weirdest thing, because the 2 years after that, I did that to one of the bucks in the same piece, and he turned into a total freak after I shot him like that. The next year, he was a big mainframe 6. He turned into like a non-typical with a weird little drop time.
I think I saw that picture. I've seen a collage of Jason. That's what I was just like, holy crap, Jason is I think, what was it, the last 10 years or something, and there's a collage of 30 pictures and
44.
44 pictures.
Yeah.
And I don't know, most of them look like they would go Pope and Young.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you know any of the stats on them? And
no, I don't. Not really. I don't really care, but I just want to kill the best bucks that are alive around. That's usually what we do.
Would you say that you're obsessed?
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably not a good thing, but yeah, it's hard on the family and my life, because I am obsessed,
Well,
but
you got to be super, super dedicated to have that level of success.
That's correct, and that's how it is for me. I mean, I'm all in, and to be all in, like I don't do, like now I'm all in. So, like I gave up fishing. I used to be hardcore, I love to fish too. And I don't do that now. If I have any free time, it's dedicated to deer hunting. Like when other guys go home at night and they're watching, maybe sit down on the couch and watch TV, I don't do that. I go out and we run trail cameras. I have a partner I go with, and we're out 10, 11, 12 at night. And then I'm running trail cameras all night trying to find where there is a good one alive, because there's not many around. It's not like you go to a spot and hope a big one shows up. That doesn't work where I want. You have to find the only one that's alive and go after him along with 10 other guys, and that's what we do. So I was telling somebody earlier, my friends had 37 trail cams out in good spots, a group of guys. They had 2 bucks over 125 inches. And these are primo spots near me. So that's how bad it is near me. It's like, I'm killing all these bucks, but these are like the unicorn bucks, they're not a lot.
Do you ever get tips from people, or you're
all of them?
So that's you're getting hot tips and then you're honing in on them.
Yes.
Yep.
So many tips. I have a good network of guys that give me tips, and I get a lot of tips off Facebook from my customers. They'll post deer in their backyard, and I'm like, oh, there he is. There he is.
I don't get any tips from you guys out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier in New Jersey, where everything's so tight and there's not many places for them to go. But that's what I work off of. Township guys give me tips, customers, and I have a couple cop guys. And somebody says if they see a buck, I usually will know which buck it is because I pretty much know all the big bucks around, and I'll go after it and try and find it.
What do you hunt with a bow? You've also used a crossbow there,
yeah, you
right?
got that crossbow,
And gun season's down there too, right?
Gun season's on there too. It's not as prevalent because it's New Jersey. You can't get 450 in a lot of spots, but you can in a few spots. And I killed a big, one last year. My son did with the gun. I usually get 1 or 2 gun bucks a year out of the 6 tags, and it's hard to find those spots.
Do you fill your 6 buck? So in New Jersey, for people who don't know, New Jersey has 6 buck tags every year.
Yeah.
And it's a really long season. It's like
6.5 months.
6.5 month season.
Yeah, first week in September to the February 21st.
So are you usually killing 6 bucks?
Yeah, well, some seasons. Back in the day, yes, I'd kill bucks every season. Now I'm more selective. I mean, I was selective back then. I'm only shooting bucks that I want to mount. But usually I'll kill 3 or 4, bucks, Last year, EHD was just a nightmare, so I didn't kill 6. But the year before that, I shot 5 big ones, and I passed up on one, a good one, so I could have killed 6, But, yeah, it's a bad obsession,
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
What do you shoot for a bow?
So I am not too particular with my gear. I used to be hardcore with it. I used to buy a new bow every year of the latest stuff. Now all my gear sucks. I don't even have a matching pair of camo. My bow is from when we used to film. My bow's from like 10 years ago it was the last free bow I got. It's like a Hoyt carbon fiber model. When we used to film, we used to get all the free stuff. We used to make the DVDs. So that's the bow I still shoot, and it still works great, And I bought my son that crossbow, and that's that Raven R500, and that thing's like a rifle. It's not even. I can't even believe that's legal during season. And I but I used it, man.
It's probably pretty fun to use that ground stalking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you killed a couple ground stalking with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you prefer that over getting up into a tree, or you use every tactic? What's your
I'm
go-to?
mostly hunting off the ground now because, which I'll talk about during that seminar. For me, undetected entry and exit is everything. And in a lot of these spots, it's hard to get down out of a tree and not get caught. So I'll try and approach a lot of spots from the ground behind cover, because these woodlots are small and there's a lot of deer in them, you know, and you're getting down and you're getting busted. The spot's done, you know. I mean, for the big bucks, you know, I mean, the ones I'm hunting are the ones that most bucks I'm hunting have been shot before. They usually have a hole or two holes, scars somewhere, or been shot at, you know. Like the one I shot last year, 2 giant holes in it. So these are the ones that are going to respond to pressure, you know. So it's easier for me to hunt. I don't like hunt. I hate hunting out of ground blinds, but it's usually what I'm doing just because it allows me to be hidden more. And the other problem is in New Jersey with these tight lots, once the leaves come off, you're up in this tree, everybody's going to see you, you know, because they're small lots. So you're trying to, like, you know, I used to get in trees and I have my friends drive by, like, can you see me in the tree, you know, because I don't want to get caught from the road, you know, being seen.
One of the things about suburban hunting is you kind of sometimes feel like you're a criminal a little bit, even though you're doing everything by the book.
Exactly.
You got a lot of anti-hunters that are keeping an eye on you, causing trouble, harassing you.
Correct. Exactly.
And I bet it's even worse in New Jersey than it is in Massachusetts.
It's the worst. There's nowhere to go, and everybody's fighting over. And I'm just trying not to be seen even by other hunters, you know. So, like, you know, that's another thing I'll talk. I don't park anywhere I hunt. I get dropped off at almost every spot.
Is there any orange law in New Jersey?
You
got to wear
gun,
orange?
Only with the gun, you got to wear orange.
All right, so when you're bow hunting, you're sneaking in your camo or whatever.
Correct, yeah, exactly. Camo. Sometimes we'll walk in street clothes with the stuff in a bag, you know, and change just because you're not trying to give away your spot. You know, you don't want anybody to see you.
Do you like hunting in the rain or after rain and high winds? Like, that's something I've been really loving to do lately because it.
Yeah, absolutely. After a rain, I'm a big weather guy, so like I don't just. I used to hunt every day. You know, every single day of the season, I would have to be in the woods. It was like a bad addiction. Now I hunt smarter. I still have the same results usually, but I hunt less. Like I only go when I know I can kill something, and usually that's to do with the weather pattern, you know, like it's going to be before a heavy rain, after a rain, you know. I've killed them in the wind, you know, but it's usually when I see weather coming, you know, I'll try and get out, or just a nice, you know, them just days when you know you're going to kill something, you know.
And early cold fronts in the beginning of the season, you got to be out there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. What's bizarre is now I've been watching my cameras, and on these hot days, I've had the most activity on my cameras, like these 100-degree days when it's unbearable, humid and nasty. It's the weirdest thing. I'm getting a lot of activity on all the cameras. I can't. In the middle of the
near
day,
water?
Yeah, there's usually water in most of my woodlots, you know, but it's not real close to water, and they're just moving around. It's really bizarre. So, you know, in these hot days, I mean, the early season, it is what it is. You know, you just got to go. It's never going to be nice. You know, it's going to be 90 and 80, you know, and we start first week of September, you know, so it's going to be nasty. And they're still walking. They're always going to be up walking, you know. You just got to be in the right spot.
I think there's a lot of people out there that just want to hunt on bluebird days when it's sunny, or, you know, it's a perfect weather day for other scenarios. But you're right. They're moving in every single weather pattern. They're moving. I really love them in the rain. I see they're moving a lot right after it stops raining.
I can always think of a light, like in November, like a light drizzle, you know, like it's barely raining. Like those days in my head stick out like something's coming, you know. You're going to kill, you know, if it's the one, if you got something nailed down, like I feel like you're going to see it, you know.
When you're building ground blinds and you have a spot for that, are you actually building the ground blind knowing that you're going to go sit there at some point, or are you kind of on the fly building something?
Yeah, no, I'll preset all my spots. I'll preset them. I don't hunt out of a ground blind on the fly because it's just too obvious, I think. If I'm doing on the fly, I'm going to do a hang and hunt, you know. A ground blind's only for a set spot that I know is good. And that's, you know, I'll go in there at night. We do all our stuff at night, mainly because I don't have the time in the day. I'm working. I'm so busy, you know, kids, wife. So we set them at night, and I do most of my spots at night, and I think not all of them. Some of them I wouldn't do. Like my one spot's as a field, I wouldn't approach that in the night because I know all the deer are out there. But it seems like in the night, where most of my spots, suburban-wise, the deer are up in the houses, and they're not in the woods. So I think that's like the best time, you know, to approach. So that's what we're doing. And it sucks hanging tree stands in the dark and doing that stuff. But
tell everybody why they're up at the houses at night.
Yeah, that's the food. That's where the new food source is, you know. The deer have evolved into the neighborhoods, you know, like That's what I spoke about yesterday. The woods are dead near me. You know, you walk into the few big woodlots that are around. If you walk in them, there's no deer in there. They're up against the houses. You know, that's where you're going to find the deer bedded, pushed up against the fences. They know which houses don't have any activity, and they lay right behind them. You know, they know no danger is coming from that way, and they know the danger is going to be out in the woods because that's where all these guys want to go. They want to go out in the middle of the woods. They want to hunt the middle of the woodlot, and it's, you know, and that's where the deer know that. And they keep evolving, you know, and it's bizarre because, you know, I have that landscape business, you know, and so we maintain all these houses. And some neighborhoods, it's bizarre. The deer never learn to go in there. They won't even come into the backyards. There'll be like a thicket behind it, and they'll be in there. And they'll have all these trees that are, you know, arborvitae's, their favorite food, and they're not even eating. Then you go to other neighborhoods, they're laying in the backyards, walking in the front yards. And it's funny because certain areas, they just have turned on to that. They started learning that there's food in there now, you know. And now, like I was at one house, you know, the other day, and I'm like, oh, my God, there's bushes are eating. We're not even near the woods anymore, you know. And 10 years ago, they weren't doing that. And now that's, you know, they're evolving, you know. There's so many of them. And
adapting to the food source.
Exactly. They're adapting. And even in the tree farm, the one I just bought, you know, the guy had all those evergreens in there that they never ate, ever. And then one year, they annihilated, 200, 300 trees. They ate the whole thing. They killed every one. And they never ate them before. And then one year, that's why he has them in there, you know, because they know there's deer around. And then one year, they decided we're going to start eating these. It killed 300 trees. Bizarre.
I noticed a common theme among people who are, I would say, at your level of killing big bucks consistently, finding the biggest bucks. They seem to be landscapers.
Yeah.
Have a landscaping company.
I know so many landscapers that do it. Yeah.
You're getting permission at those places to hunt, aren't you?
Exactly. You can use that for permission. You know, absolutely. You can trade the work. It is a real advantage, you know, to have that in your bag of tricks. You
planned that, didn't you, a little bit? You had to have.
No. But it just happened, you know, to fall into place for sure. I mean, it is a big advantage, you know. It's easy to approach somebody and say, hey, well, you know, would you like some work done, you know, and trade for some hunting privileges?
So is the majority of how you're setting up on deer, since you know they're up near the houses bedding, are you sneaking in the timber from the backside and trying to get them going back to bed? Like how?
No, I'm always,
because they're bedding and feeding up there. So
yeah,
how's your setup?
I'm just always hunting off the edge. You know, in that situation, the suburban, I hunt the edges because the second you start tromping those woods, you're ruining the spot. You know, and that's not where you're going to find the big bucks. They're going to be in places where there's not guys walking through. So I'm trying to. You know, it would be more ideal to go in there and kill one. You know, you might get lucky, but my whole thing is do not pressure the woodlots, you know. And so I'm trying to if I'm going to be a backyard hunting, I'm going to try and literally hunt off the lawn, you know, or, you know, right at the edge of that woods, you know, just be right there. I'll rarely will I ever trek into the woods unless I'm doing a hanging hunt on a buck that I think's in a bigger woodlot, you know, then I'll do a random hanging hunt. You know, I did that last year. Was successful, but that's normally not my game. You know, normal game is trying to find that big pressured buck and just sit in the backyard with the wind in my face, you know, or, you know, not even a backyard. A lot of time, backyard very rare for me. It's more on the edge of a road, you know.
Really?
And that's the other problem. That's why I'm in ground blinds most of the time, because you're not going to sit at the edge of the road in a tree. You know, you're going to get seen.
What are the setback laws down there?
They changed it, and that's why it's so hard now to find a good one. It used to be 450 with the bow, now it's 150. So now you can be 50 yards from a house, and then the crossbow's legal. I mean, they just want them dead.
But there's no setback off a road?
No, oh no.
Oh, that's cool.
Around the road, yeah.
Massachusetts is not like that.
Yeah, it's just 150 feet from a home.
Huh.
And they don't even really care about that. They want them dead, you know. With the gun, yeah, you know, you could get in trouble shooting with a gun at 450, but they don't care where everybody's bow hunting. You know, they just want them dead. They want all the deer because they're dangerous. You know, they're everywhere. There's 150 deer per square mile in a lot of them pieces near me because there's just bad management. You know, so. You know.
What did EHD do there last year, though? It killed a lot of those deer.
Yeah, that EHD. It literally, my area lost 90% of the deer, and it needed it. And you know, it's sad to say, but there was just too many. You know, I mean, it was good because what happened is even with 6 buck tags, there was so many deer now. It was hard for them bucks to all get killed. So there was actually, you know, it was actually a good thing there was more big bucks than there was because it got really bad for a while. There was none around, and then I think the deer started multiplying at a rate where they couldn't all be killed. And then I guess nature has its way of thinning out the herd, and it came in and it just killed them all. And it mainly killed the bucks. I don't know why, but
really,
yeah, it was like all the bucks were just dead. You know, only a few of them survived. You know, I think last year would have been my best year ever for sure, because I just knew of so many good ones, and that was a rare thing. I could never say that before. You know, like last year I knew of multiple bucks, and they all died.
Did you find them, or did you find any of them dead?
I don't have the time to look, you know. I didn't really go. I mean, I don't.
How'd you know they died, though?
My friends found them.
Okay.
My buddies, a lot of guys were out looking. You could actually drive down the road, and they just smelled it. It was just dead deer everywhere. But I knew from my cameras. I went from having 51, my best spot with the tree farm where we feed them. I went from 50 deer a day to maybe none. I mean, none, you know. I mean, went from a zoo to a dead zone. I couldn't believe it. I came back from that trip with Hal to Alaska, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing on my camera. Well, I didn't know what happened. And then I started seeing pictures on Facebook. You know, one guy I knew found like 12, 15 dead bucks. I told my buddy to go take a walk and see. My buddy, one of my techniques that I didn't talk about yesterday, I want to talk about today is, and it's a big thing that we use. We move deer out of certain woodlots because I know how pressured they are, so we'll know where they go. So I'll have a guy go in there 2 days in a row, and he'll walk that woods, and he'll vacate that. He'll never go back, and then they'll go somewhere where I can hunt them. He goes in there to kick the deer out, and he calls me. He's like, "We got a big problem."
And that's in unhuntable places?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. People, you know, it's just an unhuntable spot, and he walked in there. He's like, "Dude, I got bad news. There's dead bucks everywhere." You know.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and that's how, you know, we knew. I mean, I knew from the camera, but then he's sending me pictures of them all. You know, it's a shame. You know, I mean, we had a good thing, and it was my son's first year last year. He's going to get his hunting license. It was the best year ever for him to get that. You know, there was one giant buck that I knew I could have killed. The biggest buck, other than that one there, it was the biggest one I ever had on the camera around there. And I was so excited for my son. I'm like, he'll get an opportunity at this deer. And then dead.
And he died.
Yeah, he died.
What do you think that one would have scored? 170s?
No, 160s, I think. You know, a 160s buck that would have been. It was a big, massive body, massive rack. I mean, you know, we don't get normally that big a deer around me. You know what I mean? This thing was a genetic freak for my area. I mean, like that one was.
How many Pope and Young bucks do you think you have? I know you don't know, but.
No, I don't. But maybe 40 or 50, I would think. You know, because a lot of my mature bucks. This is what I was telling another guy. I used to hunt in the Pine Barrens when I grew up. So I spent about 20 years hunting in the Pine Barrens, and I killed. That's where I used to get my 5, 6
What's that? What's the Pine Barrens?
It's our state forest, our public land, and it's a million acres. It's huge area of public land, and the bucks there are small. They're small bodies. They're 90-pound deer. A lot of them mature, and the mature bucks are 110-inch, 105-inch. I think I killed one 137. That was the biggest one I ever killed, but 95% of the mature, and these are bucks that I all had cementum aged, you know, sent the teeth out to get aged and watched them over the years. The 5 to 9 year old bucks, they're all 110, 105 inches. So a lot of my bucks that I killed then, you know, they don't score Pope and Young, but I know to me that they're trophies, you know what I mean? Because they're mature state forest bucks. They just don't have the genetic. They don't get big out there.
Yep, they're big for that area.
Big for that area. Yep. I killed, probably 50 or 60 of those I've killed, you know, over the years, and those would be the 160s, 170s in Kansas. You know what I mean? In a different state.
Yep.
And I said to somebody asked me how many mounts I had, and I don't know. And that's the thing. Like if I had them, I mean, I probably have 40 of those mounted, you know, and if somebody walked in a room and saw 40 110s on the wall, they're not going to think much of it. But like I said, if that was Kansas, that would be your 150 and your 170s.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
and how many? And but you're a great tracker too. How many deer have you killed tracking up in Maine and in big woods? And
I haven't killed over 10 deer tracking. I think it's definitely under that. But the last 10 years, I haven't done it on my own. I've only been filming Hal, so I haven't been in the game anymore. You know, I don't care if I'm the hunter or the cameraman. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. So I want to learn. All I want to do is I love filming Hal. You know, the second he calls, I drop whatever I'm doing, and I drive up to Hal's house and I'll film it because I want to learn. You know, he's one of the masters, and I want to be able to teach my son that. So I don't care. I might kill $1 million. I don't have to kill him. I really don't care. So I just want to learn from him so I can pass it on to my son. I hope one day, you know, he just turned 10, you know, so I hope to show him the ropes. And I love that style hunting. But like I said, I don't.
You got to hunt where you live because, especially when you're so obsessed, it takes a lot of time to get up where you can actually track. That's
the problem. And I've limited. I used to hunt the whole state everywhere, would drive everywhere. It would be nothing for me to drive an hour to go hunt. Now I hunt 5-10 minute radius of my house max. It's just my game is to kill the best bucks alive that are within that 10-minute radius. I mean, that's all. It's just I'm not going. The other counties, they're the way better bucks.
Don't let your address leak out, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could go to Monmouth County up in the northern part of the state, and there's just way better, bigger bucks. But I don't have the time. You know, I gotta try and kill something to appease myself and get back with my family. But now it's different. Now it's not my game anymore. Now it's let me kill something for my son. You know, like last year, I passed up a couple deer that I would have shot, but I wanted my son to get. You know, and he ended up killing that one. So that was beautiful for me. So my game's different now. It's going to be forever different. You know, it's going to be more of, let's get my son on a buck, and then I'll think about myself. But it's hard because I'm not going to want to kill much because I want to keep it open for him, you know.
But how old are you?
42 now.
40? Yeah. 42. So you're 7 years older than me. You got so much more hunting, but you've killed 50 Pope and Youngs, 40 in the 110s, tracking deer. You're following Hal. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know who you are, and I was really excited to get you here.
Yeah, well, thanks, because I don't push myself. Like, I don't even, like, all the bucks I've killed, I don't even, like, put them on the Big Woods Bucks website. I just don't really care, you know? I mean, I don't have anything to prove. Like, I used to do the film, and we did the DVDs. I had that back in the day when we, you know, in New Jersey, we made all those videos, and I stopped doing it because, like, the problem is when you start getting into that, you know, and nobody's happy, you know, like there's a lot of jealousy and a lot of, you know, hatred. Like, you know,
the more you get to the suburbs, the more that happens.
Yeah, because everybody's angry, everybody's pissed off near me. There's so many deer, you know, there's only so many, and I don't know. I just been keeping to myself, you know. I don't have anything to prove to anybody, you know. I love filming, I love hunting, and I just hunt for myself, you know, and just to, you know, like I said, I mean, I just don't really promote myself, you know. It's not really my thing, you know.
Yeah, but what'd you tell me about why you really got out? It was just
I didn't like the pressure of
the filming game. I mean, of putting up videos on YouTube.
Yeah, and I still make some videos. I just don't share them with anybody. I just keep them to myself. Because I love to film. It's always been one of my passions. Just even filming, not hunting. I just love filming. But yeah, it was just. We used to do that, you know, it was just the pressure involved in it. And I just want to hunt to enjoy myself. You know, like I said, I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I really don't care. You know, I just want to hunt and enjoy myself in the woods, you know.
Yeah, one of the guys here, Anchor Point Productions, they're out there with a booth. And Tyler, he's an awesome dude, friend of mine. He just got into it, started his page. But last year he beat himself up over it. He was like putting the pressure on himself.
That's correct. That's why I stopped doing it.
He felt like he had to kill something to be successful and had to kill a good one.
And you do.
Yeah. And I was
You have to kill to be successful. And I didn't like that, you know. I mean, we always killed, you know. That wasn't the problem. It was just that in the back of your mind, like, oh, you know, my buddy, remember he got mad at me one time as I shot a buck off a camera. And I'm like, you know, that just wasn't me, you know. I mean, like I said, I love to film, but I don't want to make it like a job, you know.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't need any promotion, you know what I mean? I just, you know, I don't need to be somebody, you know what I mean? I just want to kill my bucks and make myself happy. So that's why I stopped. And I've had a lot more fun after I stopped.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but don't get me wrong. I think the best thing in the world is when you're in a tree with your friend and you're filming and you kill one. I don't think there's anything. When I think of my best hunting memories, it's not any big bucks I've killed. It's me being the cameraman behind my friends I've taken out. You know, like my buddy came from California here and he had nowhere to hunt. He was new to the area, good guy, military guy. I took him out and we killed in the Pine Barrens, and we killed on video. That is on YouTube. We killed it was a 9.5-year-old buck out on the public, and I filmed him, and I will never forget his face when he shot that buck. That is like, when I think of a good hunt, I think that was, I couldn't even sleep for 2 days. I was so excited. And I didn't even kill the deer. You know, it was so exciting for me to see him. And another one comes to mind. When I filmed my buddy Sean, we shot this one on a random hanging hunt, you know. And his excitement was just, oh my God. So that's what I love, you know. I think that's what I do miss that in the filming. You know, we used to film being in the friend with your tree, or being in the tree with your friend. You know, that's the best. You know, I mean, sharing that right next to your friend, I don't beat that.
How many bucks have you filmed Hal for that ended up being a kill?
We haven't had any successful ones,
really?
Believe it or not.
Yeah, not yet.
We've had so many times because we've been learning. The first time he passed up a big 10-pointer in New York because I didn't have the camera on. You know, we knew I thought it was going to be up there, but I thought I would film like I filmed a bow hunt. You know, I'm like, I'm going to turn the camera on when we see the deer. No, it don't work that way. Now we have to film with the camera on. It never stops, you know, because you can't turn the camera on when you're tracking. We keep changing. We're always learning. We've been so close. It's hard with the two people, you know, and it's hard because I live 8 hours away.
Yeah.
So I'm not always there to be with him, you know, and I try to be there. But we've been so close. Last year we should have had one. He did hit the one of the. We have been so close so many times.
Are you filming them this year again?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go every year. You know, I mean that's one of the things I look forward to. You know, I just want to go up and film. I want to learn. I mean it's like one of my favorite things to do. You know, but it's just hard, you know. I'd like to go back up and hunt myself, but this is only so much time, you know, with the kids and my angry wife and all that. So, you know, yeah, she hates me, but you know, it's what it is. Yeah.
Well, Connecticut Carl over there in the back corner did a podcast with him, and he said he started killing all his big bucks after he got a divorce. So,
yeah,
he had more time.
I'm sure he did. Yeah, I mean. It's always been a problem. It's been a problem since the day I met my wife. You know, she don't hunt, she don't understand it, but she rolls with it. You know, but like I said, now my game's different. I mean, there was a 10-year period where we didn't have kids, and she worked nights, and I hunted every single day. I went every day. I was addicted. I was bad. I had to go. Like I felt like if I didn't go, I was like a fiend. So I would leave work every day. I would go in the afternoon. And it was great because I never heard she was working. You know, she worked 12 to 9 every day, so it was awesome. So I heard from no one. I just went out and I hunted every single day, and I was in the tree, you know, for 6 months every day, and that was great. It never bothered me.
So have you rolled back the obsession a little bit?
No,
it seems like you're saying there was a time period there where you were.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still killing the same amount of deer, but it's different, you know, now. I just used to do a lot of hanging hunts, random spots, show up, you know, just kill bucks wherever I could. But you can't do that now because it's a different game now. Nobody bow hunted 20 years ago. You could go anywhere you wanted in my county or towns and you could pop in any woodlot. Now, if it ain't posted, there's 10 guys probably, one of 10 guys that could be in that lot that day. So for me now, it's just different, you know, like we use bait a lot now, you know, and I'll only go when I know I'm going to kill one. You know, I mean that's not the only technique we use, but it's probably these days about half of my deer will shoot over bait, just because it's less time invested for me. You know, I could just go and kill one and be done. You know,
but is it so to play devil's advocate? People who aren't used to suburban hunting, you hear it a lot, like, "Oh, that's too easy."
Yeah.
Is it easy, or is it still hard to kill those big bucks, and why?
It's easy to kill a deer over bait, but the ones that I'm trying to kill that I've seen is everybody baits. I mean, I don't even know a guy who doesn't bait. except for there's one guy I know of in North Jersey that just kind of likes to do the hang and hunt up in the mountains. But where I live, I don't know, and I know a lot of guys. Everybody, and that's part of my game now. I'm not. What am I going to do? Sit back? I mean, and not bait? It's just part of the game. So every piece is posted. Everybody's got bait, and the big ones. Most guys don't know how to do it. There's an art to it, just like there is to howl tracking. And a lot of guys, these big bucks think just going to walk. You're not going to throw bait in a pile of corn in the ground and a big one's going to come in. It's not going to work like that. They're not even going to come near it. But I have developed the techniques that they'll feel comfortable doing it, So that's a big part of my game. It's just easier. If you know how to do it, it's not hard. But you have to know.
Well, what are some of those tactics that?
Well, the biggest tactic is undetected entry and exit.
Yeah.
My spots if I'll have a spot on bait, I'll be able to get into it with the deer on the bait and leave with the deer on the bait, because the second you get down and you're kicking them off, the party's over. And you're going to walk through the woods, and I'm hunting off the edge. You're going to walk through the woods. And get to your spot, forget about it. That second that pressured buck comes by and he knows you were in there, he's going to leave and he's going to come back.
Do you use the pressure to your advantage that other guys pressure other bucks and what?
100%. That's a huge, huge part of my game. I know where they go once these guys start hunting, and that's what I'll be after the deer. And I'll hunt from the edges, and the deer won't have any idea I'm there. Hunt at a distance, and that and a natural presentation. If you're going to bait, even, I take an area and I'll spread a big area, and I don't put a pile. No big one that I'm going to kill is coming into a pile. It's not going to work.
Pile's a good way to spread EHD too.
Yeah, pile or a feeder. They're not coming to feeders. A buck near me, that I'm trying to kill, sees a feeder, he's going to run the other direction. It's not going to work like that, And I see guys putting that stuff online, and I try and tell them, on the New Jersey stuff, and I'm like, maybe try and get rid of that feeder, and the guys send me some velvet night picture of a buck. He's like, oh, look at this buck in the feeder, and I'm like, right, yeah, exactly. That's in July at 12 a.m. That's not. What's that going to do for you, So, and I don't rely on rut luck too. A lot of guys want to use the rut to their advantage and get lucky. Like, I don't play that game. I want to kill a deer every month of the season, because we got 6 buck tags. So I want to kill one September, October. I want to kill one every month, and I don't rely on luck.
You're doing that on purpose, aren't you? You don't want your season to be over in September.
No, well you can't. You can only kill one in September, really. A one antlered buck. Yeah, the way it works. They have it spread out pretty nicely, actually, so you can hunt all year.
Do you study the other hunters? Like, are you that obsessed where those posted lots, how they come in? And
well, yes and no. I mean, I just know spots where they go, and I try and avoid that. I don't want to be. I mean, there's always a guy usually in a lot that I'm in, just not near me. They'll be somewhere else, and I know, like they know how to avoid these guys.
How do you find those tiny 10-acre patches that nobody else is?
It's impossible anymore. Is
it thick, nasty, the worst stuff possible?
No, absolutely not. No. The ones that are good are the ones that don't look good, and that's the one the guys aren't in. Like that record one. There's 1,000 people driving by that every day on Route 38 where I live, and that spot's done now, so I can talk about it. And give a but they built houses there. It's called Buck Lane, actually. They call it Buck Lane. So that spot's gone, but that spot. Anybody could have walked in there and hunted that. I mean, that was public land, I mean, it wasn't labeled as public, but that's public as far as me and all the locals. Anybody could have been in there. I never saw a guy ever. I never had a guy on that camera ever one time. And because it didn't look good. And every spot that I've ever found that had all the best action is a spot that you would never think looks good. And that's the problem now, because I'm obsessed. So when I drive around, when I'm driving, all I do is look around, and I'm thinking, where's that next big buck going to be? Where is it? Like, that's, because I have that problem,
Does your wife yell at you for that? Because mine does. When I'm driving, she goes,
oh, yeah.
Why are you looking to the left and the right? Head on the road.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the problem, because I know that any spot could be good. You just don't know where it's going to be, and that's the problem, because it's like, oh, shit, So, but anyway, that's where I've always found my best spots. Overlooked pieces. You would look on Google Earth, and you would be like, there's nothing in there.
That's interesting, because I look for an overlooked spot, but then I want it to be super thick and nasty. I've been overlooking the open
That's
the wide open spots.
That's right, and it's not always going to be that way, but the ones that I found, the best ones, I could think of 3, and you could see right through them. It was bizarre, just how it was. And, yeah, that's – I mean, don't get me wrong. I've found a couple of spots that are thick that are great too, but, I mean, the 3 best, who drive right by it all day long, never look at it.
Do you like swamps? Do you hunt near swamps much?
There's not much swamp where I am residential, It's not really a thing near me, so it's not like what I really focus on or anything like that, I mean, I've killed deer in some swampy areas down in South Jersey where I used to have the time, to go hunt. But now it's just more of regular-looking woods, not too much swampy.
Let's talk about industrial. So suburbs and urban hunting, sometimes you can find a way in through industrial parking lots and things like that, right?
Great spots. Absolutely. That's what we'll do. We'll prowl around there, run cameras in all them industrial spots. That's a big part of our game. I killed a lot of them, a lot of bucks in industrial, but it seems like a lot of guys are onto those because those industrial spots you can park a lot of times.
Yeah, easy parking.
And anytime I spoke about that yesterday. Anytime you can park at a spot, there's going to be a guy in there, guaranteed. I mean, the easier to park in, the more there's going to be. So that's the problem with those. Every industrial spot lately that I've been seeing, there's just multiple stands everywhere. I'm like, oh my God, because I'm always on the hunt, and but I found a couple. I have one good spot that is still good. That guys are in there too, but they're on the other side, and I've caught them. But yeah, that's a big part of the game.
Have you thought about or incorporated, or do you own an electric bike yet? Because I'm just starting to think about that.
I wish I had that for the Pine Barrens.
There's a few spots that I can't find parking for, but that's going to open up. Now I can get in there and sneak that bike behind a tree. And
it's funny. There's a guy going up and down the street with this electric bike all the time now in my where I live, and it's a black one. And I'm wondering, like, what is this guy doing? Is this guy scouting with that bike? If I had that for the public land back in the day, oh my God. I used to take a mountain bike to my one spot because it was, pain in the ass to get to. That would be. I don't use them, but it just wouldn't really work in my area for me now. But I think that's a cool tool to have for sure. I would like to get one eventually.
Cemeteries. You ever hunt cemeteries around the backs of those? Because I've been honing in on those too, and that's
there's
really nice.
I haven't. The cemetery, I can honestly say I don't think I have hunted near one. I was going to hunt near one, but the buck actually disappeared. My buddy had this one in his yard, actually, a good one. The funniest thing, he lives right behind a cemetery. We were working there, building the patio, and I said, let me just throw out a camera in a bag over here for fun. I had a bag of corn in a truck. I swear to God, I'll never forget, I dropped this 50. I spread it all through his yard just for fun, because I'd seen deer back there. He's like, oh, I saw a buck. And I'm like, all right, let's see what's here for fun, like thinking, yeah, right. In 15 minutes, we look up, and there was 2 shooters standing right in the back of his. I'd never forget. I was going to die, and it was right behind a cemetery, 2 big bucks. And I was like, oh, my God. And I was trying to figure out how I can get my 150-foot rule going on. But then they disappeared. Once the velvet came off, they were gone, so I never went after them. But, yeah, that was my only cemetery experience.
I know a lot of guys, hone in on them because
absolutely.
It is. I haven't parked in there. It's hard to get in there to park. You don't want to be there all day in a cemetery. That's sketchy, and I don't even know if that's legal. But that's why this e-bike, now that I'm starting to mess around with them, I can get into that cemetery now.
Absolutely.
Really nice.
Absolutely. You know what? My buddy hunts right behind the cemetery. Killed a good one. That's funny you said that. I forgot we walked in that way. I help him. Yep. That's funny. Yeah. I just thought about that. Yeah, that e-bike's a good tool. I'm so cheap with my hunting gear. I try not to buy anything. My rangefinder's from Walmart. It actually has duct tape on it. It's like falling. It was freaking embarrassing. I got to get a new one. But I'm so cheap with my gear because I'm in this.
You need money for all your mounts.
Yeah, I know exactly. I'm spending them on exactly. I just picked up 2 the other day, man. Brutal. But yeah. So I'm just so cheap with that gear.
Do you use the same taxidermist?
No, but I will now. I use 2. There's one guy I use up in Maine. I really like him. I floated around a lot because it's hard for me to find what I like. I'm really particular at my work. I hate that mount back there. I hate that mount.
You hate that one?
Yes. I got that for free, actually. But
the record?
Yeah. I'm going to get that remounted. It has bug eyes on. If you look at it, the eyes are set weird. I mean, most guys wouldn't know it. I'm just obsessed
you know what?
with it.
I don't have very many mounts, but there's 3 of them over there, and there's a little bit too much of white in the eyes on them.
Yeah.
It's like one's looking the other way, and it does look a little weird.
Yeah, exactly. Now I have a guy that, I used to have a guy who had good faces, and he give me these pencil necks. You know, I'm already working with Jersey bucks that are small to begin with. I don't they don't want a pencil neck. I got rid of him. I have a guy now that, I got the guy in Maine, but he's 6.5 hours from me. It's a pain in the ass, you know, so. I got a real good guy.
Give you an excuse to go up there, drop
yeah,
one off, and then start tracking again.
That's true. That's true. I do agree. But yeah, I'm particular with the work. You know, I'm a freak with that. You know.
Well, we've got Hal's going to be coming on at 3 o'clock. We got plenty of time, but if people want to come up and ask questions, we'd love to have some interaction. And if you got any questions for Jason, the mic in the middle there.
Absolutely.
Come on up, please.
So what do you do if you shoot a buck and it goes onto Mary's front lawn?
If it goes where, I'm sorry?
Onto your old lady Mary's front lawn, your neighbor or their neighbor or whatever.
It's funny, that question comes up a lot, and it's never happened to me. It only happened to my buddy once. He shot a really big buck, and it did die on the neighbor's front lawn, and we just got it out as fast as we can. Most of our retrievals are at night, you know, because of that reason. It's not, that's the problem with New Jersey. And the game wardens know it, you know, because the properties are so small, most of them, it's going to run onto somebody else's property. So, you know, not many are posted, you know, backyards and stuff. So it's mostly night retrievals that we have to do. We got to go in there after dark, try and be low key. That's the whole thing of any of my hunting game in suburban, is to not be noticed by anybody, you know, because once you start getting noticed, like all the gray area hunts we spot, you know, or we hunt, the game wardens, the same thing, you know, they're like, look, we don't really care if you're in there, but if people start complaining, you know, that's going to stop. So that's our whole game, just be as, you know, go in at night, or, you know, and even that has its problems. You're in the woods and backyards with a flashlight, lights come on, you're like, oh, here we go. You know, it's a tough game. It's not that fun, but it's just what we got to do to get it done, you know. But yeah, the retrievals are a pain. I found that most deer do not want to run in somebody's front yard. Every one that I've killed, it's been a lot. They always want to stay in the cover and just stay in the woods. They don't ever seem to die on a front lawn. That big one, somebody asked me that yesterday. That one was headed towards a pinch point, and it actually got wrapped up in vines. It was hanging when I found it. It was I thought it was alive.
No way.
Yeah, I have a picture of it on my phone. It got wrapped up vines, both sides of his antlers, and it was literally hanging there. It's like, it looked like it was laying, like bedded with its head up, and that may have ran on it was going towards the lawn. I don't know what it was going to do, but it never made it because, like I said, I guess it died running and caught in the vines. But yeah, that was bizarre. But we don't have any lawn recoveries, you know, that I can think of. So yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, I know, because it's a.
I know some just around me that have been hit by cars, and they'll die in the backyard. But
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, luckily those shot ones just don't seem to do it.
Anybody else have questions?
Not so much a question, just a comment. When you guys were talking earlier about, you know, your wives getting after you for, you know, looking out in the woods and looking out in the areas for deer. My wife does that to me all the time, and she actually came up with a name for it. She calls it the gawking drift. And I don't know how many times I get, yep, gawking drifting again, ain't you? And it's like...
That's awesome.
One of the last times it was the deer actually out there, and I'm like, see, it works.
Oh, I like it.
I hardly ever see big bucks, though, doing that. But you see deer, and when I'm doing it, I'm more so looking at my GPS, because I got a GPS on, and if I'm going up a highway or something, I'm always looking for the green on the GPS.
Yeah.
Where you know it's going to be state or public land, then you look it on X.
Yes.
And if I see water on the side and swamps, that's what I'm looking at. I see that in the GPS, and then I look over and check it out.
Absolutely. I know. And that's the problem, too. I mean, the few ones that, the few big bucks that do step out into the fields near me, there's going to be 50 guys on it. You know what I mean?
If they're doing it in daylight.
Yeah, not many. not many bucks that have the habit of coming out into those fields survive, you know, to maturity. The only ones that seem to survive are the ones that don't, you know. Yeah.
I'm watching one right now that he is coming out in a field near where I live, but it's the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Nobody's really seeing him, but I get there and I'll park and wait for 20 minutes and watch and see if he's coming. And pretty much he's coming out the same time from the same spot, last 5 minutes. So I know where he's bedding.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
It's always good, you know, to see something up there, you know, get excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions? You always got questions. This is Brent Whitlock. He's been on the podcast before. He just got into hunting, and he's super obsessed, like
cool.
you were talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which one I want to ask you, so I might wait for the second stage where you come up again later.
Yeah.
I was looking at the map. I'm like, do I ask? All right. So it seemed that, like you guys driving a highway, I'm like, that could be a potential good spot. And the spot that you showed where, like, you're in your little ground blind, I thought that was awesome. Do you ever find yourself kind of, it sounded like you don't get too deep into the woods and you kind of stick to the edge. Do you find yourself in a tough situation where you're like, I'm bow hunting, I need to get a little farther in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's like, exactly, I always will start from the edge and just see if I see. But that's the thing, you know, like, if I think I'm going to get an opportunity, it's a fine line, you know, because I just know if I go in there and he starts to catch on that there's somebody walking in there, he's going to leave. So me, more times than others, I just will wait it out on the edge, you know, and just hope that one day he does come there. But if I don't see any deer traffic, you know, like if I get to a spot and I know that, you know, a couple sits later there's no traffic like behind me or a little bit in front of me, then I will eventually try and creep in. But that spot, I had action right in front of me, you know, and I'd see the buck a lot out at like 50, 70 yards, not 50, probably 70, 80 yards. I would see him out a lot, you know, and I knew eventually one day he's going to come by where the other deer were coming, you know, and that's, you know, and then he did, and that's how I killed him. But if I'm going to if I think there's any chance of me getting busted by traversing further into the woods, I'm not doing it, because once you start getting blown at, you know, like in these small woodlots, you know, once you start getting picked off, forget about it, you know, for the big ones, you know. I mean, like I said, my thing yesterday, the big mature bucks and the average buck is a different game, you know, so but with that being said, like on a larger woodlot, you know, I'll feel more comfortable traversing into those, you know, for a random sit. I did that last year and it worked. You know, I killed a really good buck last year doing that. Just I knew he was in there somewhere in this big block, and I was able to just.
That's like 80 acres in the suburbs.
Yeah, well, this is the biggest. The block he was in is the biggest block that's in my town, and I think it's probably 300. No, not 300. Maybe 200 acres, and that was one I was okay with traversing in, just because it's so big, for out there. I felt I was only going to do it like twice, you know, just go in there and get in and out. But if it's a good spot that I know I'm going to consistently go back to, because you can't consistently hunt a spot like that. You know, if you're going to go in and just keep walking into the woods and letting your presence known there. The big bucks that I'm hunting, they're not standing for that. They're gone to the next. I mean, literally, some of them will go across the whole township, you know, and I've seen it. I killed one in 2020 like that. Took my buddy, you know, that one walk to recover that doe into that woods, him creeping around, and that buck literally across the whole town. It moved to the other side of the town. That's the buck that I killed in that same big woodlot there. Not the one last year. It's the same woodlot I killed the buck in last year. But anyway. So I would, like I said, in these smaller spots, just try not, you know, that's the thing. Just, if you can, you know.
Slowly creep your way in there.
Yeah, if you're going to getting picked off, it's not worth it. You know, I'd rather have deer be comfortable in a spot that I know I can hunt than ruining the spot. It's a tough line to walk, you know. It's different, obviously, for every situation. But that's one we struggle with all the time. How far in should we do this? You know, it's hard, man. that's why I keep going back. It's the never-ending challenge. You're never going to figure it out, you know, and it's just, you know.
Thank you.
I know you got more. You don't got more?
Oh, I got more.
Ask more.
Stand up here. How do you identify that spot that you, like right off the highway? We all like to look at something and be like, oh, that could be a potential spot. I'll be driving, GPS is on, I'll take a screenshot. I usually don't go back to look at it, but I like to think I would. But you said you kind of think differently. You're not hunting swamps, you're hunting woodlots,
right?
Clear cuts, whatever it might be. How do you identify what's a good spot and what's not a good spot?
Well, near me, see, like, my game is to find the unpressured ground. So it's not really, it would be a different game in other areas. Like in other areas, I would probably be looking for a quality habitat, you know, something that I think looks good. Like, oh, that looks good. You know, it could be deer living in there. But for me, it's not really what the terrain looks like or what type of terrain. It's just like, is there nobody hunting in there? So for me, it sucks because I'll drive by and I'm thinking, well, that looks hard to access. That's probably a good spot, you know. And that's when we put the cameras in there, or I'll just do a random hunt in there one day, you know, to see if I see anything. It's just hard. Like I said, I mean, I can't look for quality terrain near me. That's just not really where they are, unfortunately. I mean, they might be there now and unpressured, you know, but once the season's open, it's really just finding a spot where nobody is. And that's what I'm trying to do. And it's hard because you just can't identify. I mean, some of the, like I said, the best spots I've had are all looked like crap, you know. So that's a tough game. But remember, my game is different than if you were in somewhere else, you know. I mean, I'm just speaking what works for me in my spot, you know. And that's what a lot of people get kind of caught up in. They think they have a technique that works somewhere, but doesn't work somewhere else, you know. My New Jersey deer are probably different than the you know, I listen to those guys. What is them guys that kill the big inch bucks down in Alabama?
Seek One?
Yeah, Seek One, right. I was listening to that one time, and they're hunting a different type of animal, you know? That's an animal that's I was listening to their stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's really different than my deer, you know? It's just they have a different game, you know? I thought it was kind of interesting. So, like I said, what's working for them probably wouldn't work for me. You know, and I think that's what you have to do, you know, figure out what works in your area. You know, when I do, like I said, when my goal with the seminar is to just give a broad spectrum of what I do, and maybe somebody could pull something from it for their area, you know. I mean, edge hunting's not going to work on a giant block of the deer are not coming to the edge, you know. But for me, they usually are where I hunt.
Well, Jason's got a seminar a little bit later. He's going to dive into all that stuff at 4:10 today, right here on this stage. I want to thank you for coming out, man, and that was a great conversation. And
my pleasure.
Thanks for sharing all your knowledge and coming on. And
hey, my pleasure, man. I enjoyed it. It's what I love to do.
That's it for our time, and thanks a lot, dude.
Thank you, guys.
We got about a half hour, and then Hal Blood's doing his first seminar, so right here on this stage. And the announcement Hal's doing in the Big Woods Bucks podcast is going to come right after that. On the schedule, it shows 6:30. They're moving up, and they're going to do their podcast at 4 o'clock. And right after that, we're going to do door prizes right here, too. So just want to make that announcement. Thanks, everybody.